Yeah, yeah.
Until she has the ability to do this, right, on her phone, she just won't mess with it.
Yeah,
She's,
you're right.
In fact, I love my mother to death, but she still writes checks at the grocery store.
Of course.
So
Yeah.
for cash.
Yeah.
So when she will adopt it eventually, right, is when it becomes seamless to her. So I think for a while we'll have equilibrium. Now whether that means M1 and the total supply of, I don't know.
No, here's what's going to happen. All I have to do is look back to the late 1800s to 1930. Prior to the late 1800s, it was very difficult to set up a corporation. In the late 1800s, the states adopted corporation by right. So anybody could set up a corporation they wanted to, instead of having to go get a special act of the legislature. Before that, you had to go get the queen or the legislature and the president or the governor to sign off so that you could have a limited liability company and produce stock, units of value. Does that sound familiar at all?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The very first corporations that people invested in were railroads. And guess what? People like you and I didn't invest in stocks before that time, right? The whole boom mentality that occurred up to 1930 was not really directly related to the underlying value of the companies. It was directly related to people taking their money and putting it into stocks without really knowing what they were doing. But now they were available and they traded on this new New York Stock Exchange that used to, but before that was literally trading under a tree. Some guys under a tree in New York were trading paper back and forth. And that stock exchange made it a way to trade, and it really wasn't the underlying dynamics of the enterprises that were driving the stock, it was the mass of capital of individuals, and more companies became public companies. You went from railroads to manufacturing companies to automobile companies to whatever, right? And the incredible explosion of value of stocks occurred not because, partially because it enabled underlying businesses to occur, but mostly because you had macro capital flows of common people putting their money there and not knowing what they're doing. A few years ago, I saw a prospectus, pre-crash, pre-Great Depression. It looks just like, it was before I've ever seen it, this was 15 years ago. It was at a hunting lodge that I went to that some wealthy people had, and they had a pre-Depression prospectus. It looked just like a white paper. It looked exactly like a fucking white paper, which is what they issue now for ICOs. And the white paper and that prospectus doesn't give you enough to make an investment decision on that company, right? So what's going to happen? And the reason why you should invest now is because there's 7 billion people on this planet. And like the United States in 1980s through, you got the population growing, nobody in it, until the mass of people are sated and put all their money into it. Of the 7 billion people on this planet, these tokens are going to rise in value. But watch out. It's going to fuck up the economy about 5, 6, 7, 8 years from now. Badly.
So,
because all those people will put wealth that they have created, their little bits, into that. And when the run happens, don't be in tokens.
do you think?
But be in tokens now.
Do you think there's any distinction worth making between the stock traded of companies versus the stock traded of coins?
Yes,
Which
there's a yes.
I'll say right. It honestly, it feels like
Settlement.
2000. What was it like? 2001, 1999 right now, like with the dot-com bubble. All these ICOs, it really feels like that. Like it's just over.
So
It's
you-
deeper than that.
It's crazy.
Because the reason why it's deeper than that is unlike the internet bubble,
Mhm.
the technology of blockchain and digital currency essentially remakes the entire economy, other than physical things.
it
right?
does, but it's
Other than
not. It's
farming
not
and-
real capital in the sense of like you're trading something that represents this much steel or
You
something.
can say the same thing
like
about equity, common stock.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can, but I feel like there might be a distinction there worth making. In common stock,
Well, the distinction now is that the regulation over it requires extremely high amounts of disclosure of the underlying realities of the enterprise. And there's a whole system created where any
What
person
it means
can create-
is they can issue more and more stock whether you vote yes or no, they can issue
Right,
more and more
and-
stock.
Right, there's a whole
And it's getting worse.
a very complex system of corporate law and securities law over what happened from late 1800s to 1930.
So I agree with you on that point that it's an advantage that Bitcoin and other coins have an idea of what to expect. Where I take some issue with the statement that it's just the same with common stock as with common stock or publicly traded companies. And I could get this wrong, so tell me if I get something wrong. Whenever they release earnings reports, whenever they release information about the company, you get information about what kind of capital they have, what kind of cash flow they have, etc. So it makes what you're trading more tangible.
How many times have they gone to the next quarter and the following quarter and then come back and restated everything? That happens all the time. In fact, I read that one time. 30% of all companies do that once a year.
And that happens.
Back to restate.
That may be true, but not all of them are material restatements. But anyway,
Well,
but what the difference is that with you still have to consider macro supply demands and capital. So, for instance, what happened after 2008 is the Feds have changed the supply-demand metric around capital, and they forced money into equities. Those equities are now overvalued because they've undervalued debt securities, fixed income securities, right? So while you're right, the stock has a relational component to the company, there's also macro capital flows you have to take into account. And the macro capital flows into Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies is like the macro capital flows that happened in the low disclosure period leading up to the Great Depression.
And so you mentioned like the 2001 period. Those had like a lot of runaway valuations, to my understanding, like the .com crash. And the runaway valuations, I think, sort of, I wouldn't call it the exception that proves the rule, but I think speak to the point to where your asset actually representing capital matters, but I can't quite pin down in what way. In the .com crash, the valuation of the asset didn't actually have a clear relationship to the amount of capital or amount of value the company can.
I was there. You know what they were valuing companies based?
What were they
They
valuing?
were literally the eyeballs.
Future earnings.
Eyeballs.
And-
That was the phrase they were using. I had some venture capitalist guys.
Yeah.
I went to a conference. I'm a corporate securities attorney, and I've been doing it for coming to my 4th decade. But I'm also an entrepreneur, so I know both sides of the coin. In the late '90s, I was at a conference where Credit Suisse banker, investment banker, was there with like a Draper VC or something, and they asked. Number one, they asked the Draper VC, the venture capitalist.
He's a billionaire.
Yeah, he just backed the Bancor one. The son did, not the original Draper.
Yeah,
But anyway,
He bought.
they
all
asked
the Silk Road.
they asked the Draper guy, "What do you value these internet companies?" Oh, eyeballs. We don't look at profits or even losses are fine as much loss. And then they asked the Credit Suisse guys, "Well, which ones do you take public?" And he said, "Whatever Draper brings us."
The difference between a stock and a cryptocurrency, as far as if you trade stocks, I mean, does any, besides I think this core group over here, does anybody else trade stocks?
I both trade
I do.
stocks, but I only trade cryptos now.
No, I understand, but I'm talking about the general people. Okay, so ties in. He was like trading stocks, and he worked for an electric company here in Dallas, actually somewhere, energy company, and he said it was what brought him to Bitcoin was the settlement. So when you trade a stock, it takes days, right?
T+3.
Yeah, exactly. It takes 3 days.
Yeah,
but with Bitcoin,
for
other coins,
settlement, yes.
That's kind of.
it's instant.
I mean,
Yeah.
if we want to talk about that, that's fine, but it doesn't really go to the core of.
Well, wait.
Well, it changes the infrastructure.
We'll get back to you. So if you trade Bitcoin, it's not actually instant. Now, if you're willing to pay higher fees to the mining, then it's instant. But if you're only willing to pay like, I don't know, 0%,
Right.
that trade won't go through until next week.
There's other coins that you can trade. There's two companies, Shapeshift and Changely, where you can shift the coins, whatever coins they support, and you can trade into other coins, and they are pretty quick.
It's okay to move on to this.
That
I just
must
want
be
to.
because they're holding a stock of coins in the background and they're just keeping an internal ledger. That must be how they're doing
Yeah,
it.
because they charge a fee per every transaction.
Which means you also have exposure to their viability.
Obviously,
If you're trading over Shapeshift, they're basically saying it's almost
Go
like
ahead,
a
I'll
broker
answer your
holding the
question.
stock.
No, I was
Well, it's like-
saying
it's like
I'm
a
okay to
vending
move.
machine.
I'm okay with moving on to this point about like the transaction times, but it does shift the topic away from the possibly unanswerable question I asked which is, I guess, to put it as concisely as I can, how important or how much does it matter that an asset be tied to actual capital? And if it is important, in what ways do you think it is important, and how does that relate to Bitcoin? If that question is too hard to answer and too big,
I think the question you're asking is, does it matter whether the coin or the token or the stock have an underlying business or asset supporting it or not? I think that's what you're asking.
That's a good way of phrasing it, yeah.
So the nice thing about common stock is that it has an underlying business supporting it. And you can go and look and see if it's got a net worth or not, and how leveraged it is, and what their price per earning ratios are, and things like that. Currencies, almost by definition now, are not tied to assets. They're just tied to relative ability to trade in them and the supply-demand metrics and the capital flows related to them, right?
Yeah.
Now, the nice thing about Bitcoin and blockchain is you can do it any way you like. So I got a guy who's trying to have me work with him on something where he backs his coin with a certain amount of, I'm trying to remember, telephone payments or something, some utility payment, so that kind of the coin essentially has a floor value, because you can always, but you can create anything you want. You can create Bitcoin, which has no value other than what people perceive it to have, right?
Yeah.
All value is subjective, though. All value is subjective.
Yeah, he's right that all value is subjective, but there's a distinction between what is essentially fiat currency and something that has an actual thing backing.
So we're clear, Bitcoin was made to be a currency.
Right.
Ethereum was never made to be that. It just became that through Ether.
Yeah, but they sort of both act more like assets the way their volatility is going.
Because of the quickness.
So
Bitcoin is not a currency, it's actually labeled as a commodity. It's not a currency because people aren't using it.
Well, it's an overstatement to say it's labeled as a commodity.
That's what they have it labeled as.
No.
Yes,
No.
Commodity.
It depends what you
No.
ask, right? Like,
No, I'm talking Federal Reserve
He's
level.
talking
You're correct and you're not correct. It's labeled as a commodity under some legal regimes, and under other legal regimes, it's labeled as other things. So, for instance, for your tax purposes, it's considered a commodity. And interestingly, your taxation on Bitcoin transactions is different than your transaction in fiat currency transaction.
Yeah, I feel like
Fiat currency transaction is all taxed as ordinary income tax. Bitcoin is taxed as a commodity like wheat and soybean and gold, and so you can get capital gains tax on that. There's two different ways of taxing. It's interesting because it's a commodity for tax purposes.
It's getting a little too difficult for us.
That's
Would you
it.
go
You
back
know
to
what?
the basics?
That's why you guys are like,
yeah, it's
Jerry,
good.
you're up here,
But
these people are down
let's
here.
go back to
Who has
very basics.
Raise your
Let's go back
hand.
to Andreas. Who actually
Which-
owns
Hold on, yeah.
Yeah.
Raise your hand. Who has more than 5 Bitcoins or other cryptocurrencies? Not just Bitcoin,
Yeah, I want
other
to ask that.
cryptocurrencies.
Yeah.
Raise your hand.
Yeah.
There you go.
Who has more than 10?
Wait,
Who has
more than 10 together?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or in other cryptocurrencies.
Yeah.
Who has more than 15?
Yeah.
Who has more
Wow.
than 20?
Well, some of them are cheap now. I mean, like.
You should ask the question how much you have in terms of
If you were to
dollars.
trade in all your cryptocurrency for
You had
Bitcoin.
20 different coins that you.
No, it's not 20 different coins. He's asking, do you have
20
equivalent 20 bitcoins?
Yes.
Okay.
Bitcoins. Oh.
Maybe, I don't
So
know.
there, is there anybody over 20?
Oh, 20
Yeah.
3
Okay.
is 60 now.
So just me and you.
I did the math.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
you can
so
buy-
it's-
anyway,
Yeah,
so my point is,
Since 012. So.
you guys,
How much is it worth? 30?
Wait, he's got a good point. Let's hear him out.
Yeah.
Well, what is it, 4,000 each now?
3,000.
3,000, yeah.
So
27.
you're hearing all these terms. It really what it boils down to is how's it going to affect you? How's it going to change? What is it going to change? There's different coins that have different features. Okay, just like anything else. Emmer coin is working with smart contracts with cars. Factom, which is based out of Austin, Texas, works with Melinda Gates Foundation, and they're testing in Honduras, where people, for instance, a storm happens, they leave, and all of a sudden they come back and there's someone else living in their house, and then there's no proof that they even live there. So then they get, they're out of their house. Every coin, you really have to do your own diligence, okay? And you have to, if you really like a project, things that I've done personally is I read everything about everybody on the team, what's going on, white paper,
So that's a really good point.
roadmap. Okay, I learned because I'm investing. How I look at it is I'm investing in these people, right? Because they're developers. They're driving. The the value of the tokens, of the idea, whatever. But hey, there's Bitcoin and it has its problems, but it is the reserve currency of the internet. It's not the money of the internet, it's the internet of money. And so just imagine when, I don't know if anybody here has seen, but there was a YouTube video, or now it's on YouTube, but I guess back then it wasn't, where when the internet came out, it was CNBC or whatnot, they were like, what's the internet? Oh, I think you send messages to other people. So, obviously to us now, it'd be like, that doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. And debit cards and credit cards were designed in the 60s. Banks haven't innovated in anything in the last 20 years except ATMs, which still fail to this day. But, so just try to imagine already how fast and how much it's already started to change and how much money is flowing, regardless if it's in a bubble or not. Okay, there's still people saying that it's not. Okay, I still believe that there'll be some big event to bring it down, but
I'll let you finish your thought.
yeah. So
you think a bear market's coming?
absolutely, yeah, because since Bitcoin is,
It always does.
yeah, it's all throughout history. Okay, the more you just learn about a project, whatever industry you're in, whatever you do, it's infiltrating every single industry. In my own opinion and things I have read, what it does is it eliminates the middleman. Okay, and it speeds up the process. And between stocks and coins, it's the quickness. So here's just an example of how liquid it is. So let's say I have Ethereum Classic, okay, and someone here had Bitcoin. I could we could do a peer-to-peer trade, right? They call it OTC, over-the-counter trade, and we could trade for Ethereum Classic for Bitcoin, right? And then let's say that I wanted to get cash, get fiat, back to fiat, right? I could use just one way I could go about it is go through Coinbase, and then I could do an instant sale because they support PayPal. I have a PayPal account. I can go through my PayPal account, send my PayPal account, and then send it into my bank.
This is going a bit stream of consciousness.
It's quick though. That's
no. What I'm saying is it's going a bit stream of consciousness. Like we're kind of going from one topic to the other without like a clear transition. So it's getting hard to
people
follow.
have to understand that it's so incredibly fast. And that's
no,
why.
No, I get that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the style in which things are being.
Meeting.
Yeah, the meeting.
I like to hear him finish and
Finish that. I want to say something at one point.
Yeah, and so
you're next. Okay.
it's hey, just like, sorry, I don't know your name, but
Yuko.
Trying to send money, and then we got the regulator over here. It's like, hey, well, she didn't do. She did some different patterns, so guess what? We're going to kick it back, even though her family may need that money for whatever it's going to.
Sean and Mark, have they set up shorting in coin yet?
I mean, you can short it from
Not yet.
exchange to exchange, but no, there's not real service out there yet.
So
You
yeah,
know,
you guys had one after you.
Yeah,
So
Yuko, so
the
Yuko.
question I had was the volatility of Bitcoin. That's going to affect the widespread adoption because stores aren't going to be able to take payment if there's a risk that in 2 minutes it could go up or down 25%.
So that's a very good point, and I brought up that same point 2 years ago. Like you have to be spending it to have the Bitcoin ecosystem actually grow, right? And that was proven true. Look at Venezuela right now. As of last year, there were literally less than 50 people in that country that used Bitcoin. You know how many use it today just to buy bread?
Did you say Venezuela?
Over 80,000.
Yeah.
Well, but part of the reason
Bitcoin
isn't
now.
that there's like some revolution going on there. Their currency got
inflation.
They're basically
it's doing that right now.
Exactly right. And so they had, so their money, their fiat is useless. So they had to go to Bitcoin.
That's what I'm telling you about why you should, even though it's gone up, you should get into it now anyway, because all the fucked up world is gonna, people like us who want to deal with our fucked up governments are getting into it. That'll eventually bust, but that's why it's not a bad bet today.
Yeah. China, you can't move money out of the country almost without it. unless you're, extremely
Wealthy.
wealthy.
But
Yes.
going back to his point and trying to get like to the core of it, I think what you're trying to say is volatility makes Bitcoin inherently hard to use as a currency because you don't know what to
There
expect.
is a bit dollar. A BitShares has a bit dollar now that's tied to the dollar.
No, it's tethered.
A lot of it
It's
has to do
tethered,
with
yes.
the adoption. A lot of it has to do with the adoption, right?
But-
And there's
Andrew.
also, and no one's mentioned this, and,
Okay.
and there may be a very simple explanation, but the US government is ultimately gonna feel threatened if
Right.
they have a
Yeah.
currency that the financial markets are based on.
Not just the US government.
Sure,
Everyone.
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's why Japan
No,
was
Japan.
a month ago
So-
ruled it a currency.
Yeah.
Well, but Ecuador has banned it.
But
Yeah.
see, the governments
There you go.
can't do
They
anything to
can't
stop.
ban it.
Governments can't do anything to stop
I mean, you
blockchain.
can't ban murder
Criminal.
either.
Yeah, they can't stop it.
No, no,
Criminal
yeah.
crime.
Now, if a
Right.
government, if a country,
Okay, now
You
he's done.
can make
Everybody.
things criminal without.
yeah, if a country decides
Well,
to not
acknowledging
to
that humans have the
stop,
power to do it.
stop using a
Valid.
stop using a blockchain technology, that's basically saying we're not going to adopt the internet or HTTP. So they're going to fall behind. So
But there's a big
wait,
difference between blockchain and Bitcoin.
There is.
Yeah, there is.
Bitcoin is a type of blockchain, but that.
Yeah.
It's a
So he
currency.
mentioned
Versus
one really
blockchain.
key
Hawaii,
thing.
Hawaii essentially banned it.
Blockchain
a month ago
drives
as well.
big-
Really?
So he brought up the term the Internet of Money.
Yeah.
So that's the big thing that I think like the new people here should really get. It's like this is the Internet of Money. It's coming. It's going to really
Think
like
about it this way.
there's this huge shift that's coming that's going to take
Programmable
over.
money, basically.
Yeah.
Programmable money. I'll
Yeah.
give you an example
Yeah.
that I think is going to be kind of relevant. So my son, 12 years old, has a PlayStation, and every time he gets an A in school, he asks for my credit card so he can download a game. And I cringe because PlayStation has been hacked. Right? So all my personal data, all my credit card data, it's all on the PlayStation network, right? How cool would it be if I can give him a digital token, right? One that has value, but it's only good on the PlayStation network and only good for one video game. And if he attempts to use it for anything else, it comes right back to the sender, right? So I could literally program a coin like that. It's programmable money. So talking about the Internet of Money, I could program a coin to do that if I wanted to.
You can buy him a gift card by the
Yeah.
way.
I can do that in a night.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not gonna
So,
do it.
so this is what's really cool is people are finding use cases that have never been thought of before, right?
Now, to go on to his example, to answer your question, you said like his example essentially would be PlayStation is the blockchain and his token would be Bitcoin. So
Or-
that's how what's.
Or it could be a PlayStation coin,
Or,
Yeah.
or
it
whatever.
could be the
Anybody-
coin that he comes out with,
Yeah,
yes.
And that's the
anybody
difference.
can tokenize anything now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I teach tennis. I'm thinking about, tennis coin, exchange, Only tennis
I see you tomorrow.
Yeah, why not? You have to put,
So I'm
no
curious
place
about,
receiver. You gotta be,
Ether, right? The second coin.
The split?
Ethereum
The,
cloud.
the platform itself, because now there are new like businesses and ideas
Right.
like smart contracts.
You're right.
And it's not made to be a coin, but it's kind of used as a coin.
Right now.
Where does this lead to? Where does it go?
It's this automation. Like I said, the very first thing we're going to see is self-driving cars. I mean, that's massive.
But don't get me wrong, this all exists already. When you talk about a public company buying out other companies using their stock, they say they're using their stock as a currency. This concept already exists. It's just freeing it from corporate form, essentially.
But
But
the
it's
corporate
also
companies
getting
are
that
backing
widespread
it.
adoption, that's a
In that
challenge too.
case, but not always with
it's-
it can with a token or not.
It's a challenge because when you walk in a bar and buy a drink, people still feel, they still have trust that the money that they're using is valid. That's why. But once that trust is no longer there,
Yeah.
then things start to
Like
change. But
Venezuela.
see, but what happens is you're forced, meaning you have no option. And we all know all throughout time, when societies are forced to do things, it's never good. So only, obviously it's up, everything's up sky high. So anybody that's literally buying in right now, you haven't seen what just happened literally this year. I mean, I've only been in it a year and it shot.
To answer your question about volatility, right? Do you remember Brexit when the British pound just tanked?
Brexit? What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joking.
yeah.
Can't go away for a couple of days, but yes.
Right. But then there is volatility in in fiat currencies as well. It's not like as still.
That's true,
But
but we're not
investors-
like the volatility in
Yeah,
fiat currency is like not.
it's like this.
It's not
Whereas
at the same.
There's
We're
one
also
side.
talking, right, 6 million people maybe versus how many people in the
Right,
US?
Exactly.
right.
That's the reason why it's
Huge
volatility.
volatility
Yeah.
because
But to
if
me,
a whale that has 500
I
points sells,
experienced, the 1980s, like
Huh?
real estate, up
Right.
and down stuff.
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, I have nothing
Oh,
to
in
lose.
Japan, right?
I
Oh,
lost
oh,
no
oh.
over here.
Oh, okay.
I lost so much money for investing, to the real estate, the timing,
Right.
and then I'm so sick of real estate, right? So I
Yeah.
decided
We're
to
back
go.
in it again.
No, I entered the stock market and failed again,
Oh,
right?
no.
So and then now. It's
Now you have
to
Bitcoin.
me nothing to lose. Bitcoin, like in front of me, last year, okay, it's only less than $1.
I think for-
they became,
So
millionaire.
maybe one question worth asking here is, what is your name again?
I'm Jerry.
Jerry or Jared?
Jerry.
Jerry. So you are bullish on Bitcoin for the next in 7 some odd years, let's say. You, I think, on the other
I'm
hand,
very bearish.
are bearish on Bitcoin for the next 7 some odd years.
Because people that weren't interested in it at all, now they're like, hey, should I buy Litecoin? I'm like, oh, it's just a bad time.
So anyone here can like veto this because I've kind of asked a lot of questions.
But Singapore just tokenized, they're tokenizing the country as we speak.
Signal Core?
Singapore.
Okay. So you're bullish on Bitcoin, you're bearish on Bitcoin. I'd actually like you two to like spend 3 or 4 minutes arguing with each other over that, because for the people that are new here, it might give us some insight into which one.
Well, I love
Well,
Sean.
there's also another.
I mean,
another
I find it
opinion,
really
which is-
surprising. I don't believe. Number one, I don't believe Sean is bullish.
Or bearish.
I am.
I don't believe he's bearish. Maybe bearish on Bitcoin
Yes.
as that particular coin.
Oh yeah,
But
that's
I
what.
think he's bullish on tokens.
That's true. So
And Sean is the most, and I shouldn't say this because
So are you
I don't
actually
want
bullish
anybody
on?
else to-
Are you actually
I want
bullish
a few
on?
people to know this is cautious,
itself?
and he's got time to talk to me about it.
All right.
But he is the most educated person that I know on the nuances of what is really a field you cannot ever totally get your hands around. Right? It's like saying I have my hands around the economy. Right? Like I'm Robert Wright or I'm whomever, who's an idiot, by the way. But I'm an economist who knows everything. I'm a crypto economist, but he's as close as I know that you get to it. But so I don't think you're both bearish. You may not prefer to invest in Bitcoin now, but you're still bullish on digital currencies, right?
Yeah, I recently made a trade. Actually, the very first Bitcoin meetup, I don't know if you remember, but I was talking about Potcoin, and I don't know if
There's like 4 of us here.
anybody saw, but
That's Robin.
yes,
Dennis Rodman. Yeah.
yeah, and actually that trip is sponsored by Potcoin. But
Yeah.
anyways, but yeah, so
So a guy like Sean, he ought to be running, although it's not currently legal to do it,
Popcorn.
in the United States.
Are you queen?
trading.
He ought to be running a fund,
But
a digital currency fund, because he's
Yeah.
can make good choices about what to be in and what to be out.
And so another thing that I invested in is, so recently, last week, Nevada passed a bill
Oh, yeah.
unanimously, 21-0,
Yeah.
okay, that they weren't going to tax blockchain and they weren't going to need any certifications. So it's a historical bill that passed, okay? So the very first physical business, okay, and I was talking about earlier about the rise of currencies, has always been in the black market, prohibition, alcohol, actually it was prostitution that actually drove the adoption of like I believe fiat, and so anyways, so I invested in the first blockchain-based strip club, and because they have an actual business plan and they have their own ATMs, and what gives it value is scarcity. So the U.S. dollar, we just keep printing it, quantitative easing, that's what they call it. But with Bitcoin, we know exactly, and other coins, okay, other coins, we know exactly how many coins there's going to be in circulation,
Sean, how carefully have you kept your records? In other words, if you had to go back and prove up a historical historical dynamic with regard to your investing in cryptocurrencies?
A lot of it was kept on the exchanges. You're
No,
buying and selling.
could you just,
Sure.
yeah, if we wanted to set up a fund, could you reliably show?
Yeah, there's already funds out there where I told you about at Blue Magic where they show exactly all the coins they have to the exact amount, the exact dollar, and actually the percentage gains every month.
But you could do that with your personal historical record. Can you do that?
Yes.
Okay.
And so, anyways, and so yeah, I invested in it, because of the scarcity. But every project, you just have to read into it. But the reason why I pulled the trigger is because of this law that gave it validation, and we're going to continue to see more and more states pick up on to support cryptocurrencies. That's what we're going to see. But as far as Bitcoin, I am bearish just because there's people that it's a power thing. They want to centralize as much as possible on mining and controlling, the currency commodity.
The mining fees is what they want.
And I don't think, I would venture to guess that Sean is not necessarily saying that he thinks Bitcoin is going to crash.
I know. I think it
It's
is.
going to dip.
You will crash.
Yeah.
You think it's going to crash
100%.
sometime soon?
Yeah, because they're going to do the
Before
hard
August,
fork on
yeah.
August.
All the whales are going to scale out, like in July.
And we're already witnessing the flipping of Ethereum that came from nothing into this massive 36 billion. I saw at the lowest I saw it was 400,000.
Do you
you
know
know
that the
who's
hard
behind
fork is
that?
actually going to occur?
Yes, because
Yeah.
they agreed on it at consensus.
Okay. No, that's
In
all.
a day.
So, would you actually say that you are bullish on Bitcoin? Just for clarification.
I don't have nearly I'm not a trader of anything. I'm a builder of businesses.
And
My focus is on two levels: macro capital flows and organic business building. Sean is in between me, right? Focusing on the bits and bytes, stocks and bonds, cryptocurrencies, and how they trade. I find it hard to actually compare stocks on the stock market or cryptocurrencies. I'm more like, where is the macro capital going? How does that affect my organic business building?
An example is the
So it's hard for me to
NASDAQ
say.
is filing patents, AT&T, the NASDAQ, another big company. Anyways, they're filing patents. AT&T just filed a patent for using Bitcoin, blockchain technology, and the NASDAQ filed a patent for Ethereum smart contracts to speed up the process. So, it's just beginning. It's in its infancy stage. It's just beginning to infiltrate.
So the point is, I think the macro cash flows, capital, is going to move toward digital currency generally.
Yes.
So I think investing in digital currency generally, I'm bullish on for the next 5 years or so.
But no strong opinions about any particular.
Why are you so bullish? on
And then I would talk to
wanna
Sean
know
about
this.
making choices.
Why Ethereum and not Bitcoin?
Yeah.
What was this question? Oh, my question for you two was, when do you think, how many years do you think it'll take for Bitcoin to reach 10,000?
Nobody knows.
See,
I think once we go, down a downturn, I think from there, then we'll be on the road to that path.
Well, on a percentage basis up till now, Bitcoin has crashed 3 different times, right? In fact, it almost crashed because it's got to drop 20% on Monday, right? It dropped 18%, right? And so it happens all the time, right? And you'll see volume go through the roof. I mean, people are like, they'll panic or they're buying. One of the two, right? And I just see Ethereum, Ether passing it because of the technology.
Yes.
But
You think it'd be less volatile?
I think the hard fork's going to help, but the hard fork is also going to pit the miners against the, let's call them users.
Speculators.
Well, we're gonna see all these different types of Bitcoins.
Yeah.
Bitcoin Unlimited, Bitcoin Core. Bitcoin Classic. So that's
So
where it's going to
how
split
do you
into.
pick up the, because you spread the, the basket, right? You don't put it in the same basket. That kind
Yeah,
of
definitely
stuff, right?
diversify.
Yeah.
You
So how do you pick?
hedge.
Yeah.
And
How do you
so-
pick your, knowledge? So
I just read into the companies or the ideas and read in, look up the people. I didn't even know that Charlie Lee, the creator of Litecoin, that he worked at Coinbase. He just quit actually.
He just quit.
even you didn't.
Also, going back on her question, I would even keep your coins in different wallets.
Yeah, and that was the
different
next,
exchanges.
what I was going to talk about is
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Oh, that
so
kind of
security.
information.
So security
It's very important.
this is a big thing. That we're in this technological rise, right, where everything is connected. Wi-Fi just means that everything's talking to each other, right? And there's all these back doors, and we're really in the middle of a paradigm shift. And so, what I just ordered, actually, and I paid. So I use Purse.io. If you have Bitcoins or want to kind of learn how to use it, at least Bitcoin. You can.
Recently, right?
Yes.
I have such a hard time last 2 weeks.
Purse.io.
I couldn't get any
It
Bitcoin.
uses Amazon, and it gives you a discount for using Bitcoin.
B-U-R-S-T?
Purse.io.
Purse, okay.
It's out of San Francisco.
Oh.
And so, for instance, I bought this 4K Yi camera. They call it the GoPro killer.
Oh.
But I bought it off there. I actually got a bunch of shirts, and I'm working on. I've been working on it for a while. YouTube and Steemit. Steemit is a social media blockchain based, but I forgot where I was going. Anyways,
Security, wallets.
wallets. So I got a Trezor. So there's.
Yeah.
You can keep it on exchange, which is extremely risky, right? Mt. Gox, there's been other hacks. Bitfinex, which was the biggest in the world, it got hacked. We don't even know how it happened. They were able to pay back the customers, but it's still not safe to keep coins on exchanges, okay? And then you can keep them on a hot wallet, which means there's different programs or projects that support different coins. And you can keep them like if you want to make, kind of like almost it seems like a day-to-day purchase, okay? And then there's cold storage wallets where they're completely offline. And there's only, there's Trezor, there's Ledger S, and there's Nano. So there's only, we're talking very, limited.
Let me share that, a friend of mine became millionaire like from last year to this year. She's coming next week. She recommended Trezor or something.
Yeah, Trezor is
Yeah,
an
or like
let
Ledger,
me
like
explain. Yesterday, I bought it because she recommended through Amazon, right? And guess what? Today, I got the, you cancel the Trezor, the little USB things. I didn't do anything. They
canceled
canceled.
their order?
Yeah. What?
It must be out.
Or something. Yeah. It's keep hunting. Last 2 weeks.
I checked, it's a hardware wall.
There's other ones.
You can't even get it.
Yeah,
It's
they're-
like
they're
100
difficult because of
something.
the demand. I ordered one yesterday as
But
well.
Just
yeah.
go straight to the website.
What was the
No,
one we
but
saw?
the story said you have to have
Yeah, that was
Bitcoin.
Trezor. Yeah.
I wanted to get
They
Bitcoin.
sold out in
Today is the first time I
hours.
bought Bitcoin. So,
Oh, and another-
ATM.
You're gonna have to wait to-
Yeah.
Another reason why Ethereum is up
Everything's
so high for
stopped.
you guys is because it's now accepted on Alphabet and the dark web. That's why it increased. And next month, Zcash is going to be implemented into Alphabet and the dark web. So, and then actually at Consensus, that I didn't even have any idea, JP Morgan Chase partnered with Zcash. What is Zcash? Zcash is a anonymous cryptocurrency. It's the most anonymous cryptocurrency that exists today. And now you have a major bank that is partnering with this coin. And,
This question might be best for Jerry. I read an article, and I apologize for not recalling the name, but it was a partnership with all the major banks, and it's a settlement system. You know what I'm talking
It's
about?
R3, I think is what you're referring to.
Right.
It's a consortium
Okay.
of the major banks.
It's a Ripple.
Sean talked about it a little bit earlier. It was really the first big consortium of major institutions that got together, not just banks. We had insurance companies in there. Really anything financial related was in part of this consortium. There's still a lot of big banks and big financial institutions in there, but slowly they've been tearing apart and going to the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, or they've been going to Ripple. So these are all just, again, for lack of a better, consortiums or groups of individual financial companies that are looking for synergies, finding ways. Like the example I gave earlier about converting those, did I give that example? Converting the esoteric currencies into, okay, so use case. Chase is working with this, right? And this was a few months ago, so I think it's already out, so we can share it. You come back from vacation from one of those countries that doesn't have currencies that are used widely, right? Let's assume you come back with $1,000 worth of rubles, and you can't really do anything with it here, so you give it to your bank, say, hey, I'd like to convert this back to US dollars, right? They take your cash, right, through a cumbersome, tedious process. It goes back through several intermediaries, international cash setters. All these other banks get involved, and by the time the money comes back into your US dollar account, 3 weeks later, it's probably not even $1,000 because every step along the way, somebody took a cut, right?
Yeah,
So-
this was something different. This was
Okay.
something pretty new. I either read it like in the last 24 hours, either in the Washington
Okay,
Post or the
so it
New
must
York
be something
Times.
different, yeah.
And it's all the banks, and basically they are standardizing.
That's Ripple.
I thought it
It sounds
started
like
with
Ripple.
a.
Explain Ripple because
XRP, Ripple's XRP on the coin.
yeah, it's Ripple.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ripple is an interesting project, and since Luis is in the banking industry, explain to people here how banks send money or governments send money.
So it's most banks, large, especially banks, when they exchange funds with governments or other large institutions, they send it via the SWIFT network, right? Stands for Society of World Interbank Transfers, something. Anyway,
Financial transactions.
the smallest denomination, my understanding, the smallest denomination on this closed network of institutions that belong to this consortium called SWIFT, right? The smallest amount you can send is 25 million bucks, right? So I won't probably be sending that forever, right? So
How much?
25 million is the minimum. Now, when we send money overseas, cross-border, we send via wire, right? So you walk into your local branch, you take some information, you take down some data, and all that money. So, but that's the Fed wire system, and that's connected to, right, the world banking system through central banks, right? This network, the SWIFT network, is not us, right? We don't get to participate in it. That's major institutions or
But it's
countries.
still a big pain in the ass.
It's still
I've
well,
done
it's,
a lot of Swift.
and it's based on the fax line, right? So that's what it was developed
Fax line.
for fax technology.
Exactly.
Oh my
See?
gosh.
Oh.
So
Yeah,
it's
top of
very
bag.
old. It's not up to date.
Fax line?
Exactly.
But it's supposed to be secure because it's
I love
closed loop.
fax still.
But unfortunately, even Swift has been hacked, right? So you'll never hear about this kind of stuff.
Swift's been hacked multiple times.
Multiple times,
Yeah.
right? So now this is why banks are looking for another platform, another set of railroad tracks to run their transactions on, basically, right?
Hence the side chains from the blockchain and the patents. That's all where that stems from.
These are totally different
Are you on the Meetup
from, they're not
Today
using the
the first
Bitcoin blockchain,
No,
they're not
are you
using
on the
Ethereum
Meetup?
blockchain, they're just, it's its own internal.
It's its own
algorithm.
internal.
Right,
So
they're
it's
they're
not-
making their own, but that's called a side
Oh,
chain
yeah,
too,
yeah.
right?
Right.
I mean,
But
they're
they're not-
they're using the code to a certain extent
Yeah.
to write their own
But
block.
just because they use
blockchain.
it doesn't mean they're gonna like drive up the price of Ethereum. Like, it's a very
Yeah,
different
definitely come
thing.
back.
No, I didn't say
I'm
that.
saying,
That-
are
Consider
you-
just the technology.
Okay.
It's like, let's say, for example,
Oh.
your router uses,
Right, but I never said it was
technology.
gonna drive up anything at all.
Right.
I'm just saying, yes, that is their own
Sure.
blockchain that comes from a side chain that
Oh,
came
yeah.
from Ethereum, yes.
Is there anybody that
You're
has
in it.
questions on a
But
certain
I
coin
can change
or
it.
security?
That was Ripple, right?
Those were,
Oh,
well,
you're
Ripple
in
is
the-
again, that group of consortium.
XRP, yeah.
That
Yeah.
trying to find those synergies, those savings. So I was gonna finish up about the ruble story, right? So that cumbersome process with all the intermediaries, the length of time it takes, and plus
Cuts them out.
the money they take away from you.
Cuts them all out.
Right, so you get rid of that process when you use the blockchain. So for example, Chase was using the ability to take those rubles, convert them to immediately to Bitcoin, and then right back to USD and into your account. So, and you actually have the full amount in your account.
Very well.
And you do it within 2 seconds. So it's a use case I think that's going to be very popular. Remittances is going to be probably the biggest
Yeah.
change I think that we're going to come across. Again, from a money laundering perspective, right? We like to think we have a good idea, a good handle on transmissions.
Are you sure?
Some might argue that.
But I
Me
heard,
through Tor and a VPN,
Right.
yeah, that's gonna be really
I saw it on the YouTube or something about Obama talking about this encrypted
Yeah,
thing,
yeah,
and then
Unbreakable.
he say that mean like if there is big money laundering and stuff, and we cannot go in it and see who is doing it, nobody can be
Come
able to
on.
find it
The
out.
problem is-
If
yes.
You
I
were
hear what
saying
you're
if government can go in there and find out, it's mean can do other things.
So they
happening.
can. They can. Actually, there's actually tools now. You can actually, if you go to blockchain.info
Yeah.
and you type in either a wallet address or a wallet ID,
They
you can
can
see
find it, yeah.
every iteration that Bitcoin is.
Yeah, it takes a long time
does.
to
Yeah.
do that though.
I also have a question,
There's also-
and since you guys were talking, it came to my mind. The American government has a agreement with different countries
Uh-huh.
in the banks and stuff. Like if you're American citizen and automatically you don't have to give your no information. If you say my country Turkey, right? If you go Turkey, just say your name and you want to deposit your money in the bank, right? Immediately they know that
Yeah.
you are from America, and immediately they make you sign a paper that the taxes will be cut
Yeah,
down
yeah.
from your money in that country.
Yeah.
So in my case, it was different. I say, well, I didn't earn that money in America. I'm American citizen, but I'm also Turkish citizen, and that is an inheritance from my daddy's passing. They say in inheritance situation, when you deposit your money, if you are American citizen, you have to have proof in you because they cut the taxes already in that country when you put your money, and because you don't have right away, you don't know the knowledge and stuff, you cannot take immediately, bring the money here or do the transfer, especially if you've been many years away from your country. You know, you have time to think what you do, and then. But since you inheritance money that you save, since that's a different story, you have the papers, they would not cut taxes on that money in America because they cut it already in Turkey now. So if someone put their all the money in the Bitcoin and stuff like this, and if they transfer in here and stuff, is that going be illegal or?
It depends.
It
So
depends.
it depends.
I don't want to know. I don't want to get legal.
It
advice.
depends. It depends
Or
on who
accounting
you ask. It
advice.
really does.
Yeah. So there's
It does affect.
you can sell bitcoins through local bitcoins for cash,
As that one Bitcoin.
but as far as the tax, it's all, remember, it's in its infancy stage. So I don't, there's tons and tons of unanswered questions,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So you just have to be patient. But now I forgot.
One of the overarching themes, at Consensus, which is the big Bitcoin conference that was in New York, second week of May, right?
Yeah.
One of the overarching themes over this 3-day conference was regulation, or more importantly, the lack thereof. Because now you're starting to build businesses on top of this platform, right? And these businesses need to know which way they can move, but without regulation, one way or the other, right? They don't know how to operate. And if you have jurisdictions like the US that might not be as friendly, right? Then you might have a situation where the technology goes right over you. You got leapfrog, right? Is a technology term. I'll give you an example. So there's in Switzerland, right? There's a city called Zug, at 30 miles outside of Geneva, and they literally are creating an incubator system for anybody who wants to do an ICO, right? So they are basically making it simple for you to have programmers for hire, attorneys for hire, CPAs for hire, basically making it very simple for you to launch your own ICO, right? They're adopting the technology. Now, their banking laws are making it very easy because their banking laws are more friendly for this kind of stuff. My fear is, without the regulation here, all that technology, that brain drain, is going to fly right over us and go straight to Switzerland. And they're going to have the best developers and the best mining equipment. And see what I mean? So we need to have regulation coming first. I think that's the biggest reason. So when I say
Regulation won't come until it crashes.
and that's probably more than likely the case,
That's-
right?
that's
So
how
I
it
see this
happens.
with the sincerity. Invest what you can afford to lose if you're going to invest.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I
That's
heard
important.
these same statements
Yes.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
So
That's right.
it's very interesting.
Guys, we gotta leave, but one of the let you guys know about this coin called Lisk that it's kind of like Ethereum, but it's built on JavaScript, and their SDK is coming out later this year. And why this is going to be huge is
Say it again, which one?
Lisk, Lisk. So it's huge
Lisk?
because there are 100,000 JavaScript developers in the U.S. and there's going to be the amount of apps that are going to be built on this are going to probably surpass Ethereum.
Apps are
And-
dApps, decentralized.
decentralized apps. Yeah. So pay attention to Lisk. And my comment is also is like I'm super long on Bitcoin. I think it's going to be well over like 6 figures.
Well,
to the moon.
when it-
even if it
when it
even if it
forks,
hard
we'll say, yeah.
even if it hard forks, it's going to drop. But Ethereum forked. It dropped, but now it's higher than before it forked. So I think the same thing is going to happen with Bitcoin. Like you're gonna have probably Bitcoin Unlimited and Bitcoin Core. They're going to compete. The Bitcoin you have now is going to be split between those two. The winner is going to win. You just sell more and sell one, buy one.
If you keep your coins on like Coinbase and it splits, it's up to their discretion to give you whatever they feel like. So unless you're
Who are they?
Okay.
Huh?
Who are they?
Whatever
It's
exchange.
a company out of San Francisco. So unless you're holding the private keys, that's what this is. How Bitcoin came about was that example WikiLeaks. They PayPal and MasterCard blocked them. They couldn't do any more donations. So it was literally them strong arming, saying, "Hey, you can't you can't get donations." Another industry is the marijuana industry. Marijuana is Schedule 1 drug. None of the head shops can have bank accounts, so they're doing everything by cash, and then they're depositing tens of thousands of dollars, which I don't think anybody here would feel safe, right, doing that. And so cryptocurrencies are just alternatives and offer many solutions. And there's Waves, there's Lisk, there's Factom, Ethereum Classic, there's Zen Cash, there's Z Classic, there's Zcash. I mean, there's
We
tons
know
of.
which one came out today, and it's already moved to number 7 on the
I know.
market cap.
Dude, this
IOTA?
one-
IOTA
Yeah.
came out today, 35.
Yeah, there's
Is it billion?
no. It's like 300.
I don't know.
It's market cap.
It's in the billion.
It's in the billions.
Because of the
So-
sound, but I mean,
so-
it's really
And-
Which one?
I mean, yeah,
No,
IOTA.
When you hold the private keys,
Yeah.
you actually have, you're holding, no one can shut your money down. No one can stop it. But, with the problem with the networks, that's where I think we're going to go through one massive downfall, and then we'll start to progress.
Alright,
It was nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you.
IOTA,
Keep in touch,
it's like
okay?
6. It's like 6 on like CoinMarket.
See you guys.
See you guys next time.
Nice to meet you all.
Can can be purchased Bitcoins
I don't think there's an age because
There's
all,
no
Sell
age.
what?
No, IOTA.
No, because I don't know, I never
Thanks
did it. I never used it.
did anybody have any questions or anything?
I didn't know.
Yes.
Yeah,
I-
you
actually
go
work
ahead.
at Tesla?
No, but I'm a futurist.
So I've heard that
I'm in all kinds of
Tesla
stuff.
takes Bitcoin.
Yes.
Think about that.
Oh, you can go to
You can buy it.
you go to
They did
space.
that for a while. Yeah.
You go to space on Richard Branson's
Yeah.
Galactica and pay with
On
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
What do you do though, like if you have,
Andreas.
say you're paying $75K for a Tesla, and you got Bitcoin, you have to aggregate them into a single coin to pay for it, or?
Well, it is a single coin. Yeah, you send it straight to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that.
What if you
might have 10 different wallets.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I meant, like if you had a whole bunch of wallets.
I'll probably take it, it's either way,
I mean, how do you bring it all together
You would have to transfer them all in. Oh, I mean, you can do individual or just transfer.
I'm sure the salesman will take your money.
But there's
30 Bitcoins, but there you go. and you
the
get a car.
first big company to accept Bitcoin is Overstock.com.
Oh, yeah.
Which is starting here.
Overstock? Oh,
Read
yeah.
about them, and then you know the CEO's vision, and that will help you understand. Hey, there's CEOs, into this, and then you're like, okay, it's more than just, it's not just regular people. And so
Is that the Overstock.com?
Regular one, yeah.
Store?
it's just the e-commerce like Amazon.
Yeah,
I saw
I think the website's o.com.
What was your question?
Oh, you had briefly mentioned Litecoin, not Litecoin earlier. And
Yeah,
I had,
Litecoin.
yeah, like I
So-
was researching it a little bit, and from what I understand, of course, I'm new. It's like it sounds like it's very similar
Yes,
to the
it's-
Bitcoin
yes.
technology. So it's
Except it's faster, correct.
And it's that they
Yes.
adopted something that makes it faster
Yes.
recently.
Yes.
And so
Like
basically,
that
my
network
question
setting.
is like
Yeah,
basically,
and
if all of these merchants are set up, the ones that are set up for Bitcoin, if something were to happen that got expensive, would it be easy for them to transition to Litecoin? And if so, would that?
Yeah, all they have to
you
do
know,
is
that
have a
the
public
value-
address. So I ordered 2 things that is on the way. I have a Will Work for Bitcoin. It has a QR code. So literally, like when I'm on YouTube or whatnot, people can donate straight from their computer, to my shirt and then into my public address. I also have a Ethereum Classic necklace coming, and so people could my public address is on there, so people can donate from anywhere around the world, you know, to me.
So from like the merchant standpoint, it would be easy for them to switch from Bitcoin to Litecoin or to accept
Yes.
both or something.
There it
If
is.
that's the case, and I guess I question why Litecoin's value. I mean, I know it's jumped
Why it's so
recently.
low?
Why it's so low compared to Bitcoin if it's very similar and it's, you know, it's quicker.
First mover's advantage, you know, that's really what it is,
Yeah,
you know,
It's
also.
because there's more Litecoins than Bitcoin.
That too,
Oh,
it's
okay.
also supply and demand.
Ah.
The
And-
supply is
and-
high.
The scarcity
Right.
is not as.
A coin to look at, in my opinion, is Zcash. Zcash is same exact. They did a reverse type of process where they only had like one coin come out, and it was like 3,000. But anyways, not to confuse people, you know, privacy coins are really hot topics because people. Obviously, everybody in this room, I think everybody wants privacy. I think they want to be able to buy things without the government knowing exactly what they're buying. And so there's multiple coins, and this year they've taken off tenfold. You know, Z Classic. Actually, so there's so much innovation happening. So I bought in Z Classic as a fork from Zcash, and then they forked again from Z Classic. But people that were holding Z Classic also got a 1-for-1 in Zencash. And so I received a 1-for-1. I downloaded the wallet to hold the private keys, but then exchange. So like I said, if you hold it on an exchange, it's up to their discretion if it forks or whatever happens, if they're going to give you that other coin. And so Bittrex supported the split, and then so I had it in my wallet.
Does that mean that you basically doubled what you
Yes.
had? Oh, without basically really purchasing anything. So it's
I
kind of
didn't-
like
I didn't do
100%
anything.
return. I mean, basically. Okay.
What do you think about EOS?
Huh?
EOS.
No, I don't know too much.
It's just so new. It's just like
Yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the publicly traded companies. So I've seen the trust that appears like it was established to set up to get traded as almost to shadow the Bitcoin price.
The trust, what do you mean?
Talking about the Winklevosses ETF?
Yeah, so that trust is still trading, but not as an ETF.
Correct.
The
Well, Barry Silbert, he owns actually CoinDesk, and he's actually he started a Bitcoin holding trust company, but he didn't need the ETF because it's in the gray area, and that's why he's labeled as a trust fund manager.
so
And he holds Bitcoins, everybody's Bitcoins.
so I've noticed a few other companies that that are much less expensive stocks, like penny stocks.
Other coins, you mean?
No,
Or-
no, publicly traded
Oh,
companies, but
NASDAQ
you
stock.
would typically.
OTC stuff.
Oh,
Yeah, they're
penny
OTC
stocks.
stuff.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, what do you mean?
I'm curious if anybody knows anything about them.
About
Or
what?
if-
What does it have to do with digital currencies?
Yeah.
Well, those companies are participating in digital currency, so because the masses can't invest in it or are concerned, that's a place for
Oh,
them to
I
go.
know.
I don't know of one, so.
So,
So like
With Bitcoin?
McAfee's new company, whatever,
John McAfee?
John McAfee,
Uh-huh.
he,
Hey, thanks, guys.
sorry.
Okay.
Good night, everybody.
So, they completely shifted their purpose and did a press release about a month ago that stated that they're going to completely shift and invest into the technology to start mining coin.
Right.
Okay, and so that is their mission, and it had dropped down to like 80 cents per share from what it was trading at like before at $4.
Should have bought that. But, no.
But there's other companies too that are doing the same thing, and I can't tell whether or not these little companies are just
Are reputable or are they
correct.
pumping and
Yeah,
dumping?
because the whole scene is not necessarily.
See,
people.
I think of that as the OTC pot stocks, right? So I think those, so they're penny stocks now. They jumped up about, when was that? About 120 days ago when Florida and
the elections. and stuff.
California, right. And so they're way back down now. I'm talking about like 10 cents, $1.22 a can.
Yeah, you trade
still
on
on the, but I am long on those stocks though. I am very, very long. One of the bigger stocks in that's actually an NYSE stock is
Medical marijuana.
no. What's the growth stock? It's the
The MMJ, yeah.
potting soil stock. What is that one?
Potting soil.
Yes,
Miracle-Gro?
yes. Miracle-Gro is up 300% this year.
What's it called?
This year.
Why don't you tell me about it?
Miracle-Gro.
Well, I guess to some extent that is kind of my point. So like what other
crazy.
businesses
Well,
support
that's what we're
businesses
saying.
that
We're seeing businesses flow in, but the difference.
And you're in it?
The difference is people. You can buy $10 worth of Bitcoin or any of these other coins and go on an exchange and trade them instantly. But the way that we do it now is you got to go through, Charles Schwab, right? And then they got to approve you.
Well, that's the whole thing too. Is it for us individuals? We're not institutions, so we have to go the retail route. So we're literally